The banker's hand trembled as he slid the foreclosure notice across the desk toward Nathan Sawyer. And though Nathan had known this day was coming, seeing those words in black ink still felt like a knife twisting in his gut. 23 years old, and he was about to lose the only thing his father had left him before consumption had stolen him away 2 winters past. The ranch outside Hillsborough, New Mexico territory, was barely holding on, the cattle gone piece by piece to pay debts, the land parched from 3 years of drought that had turned the soil to dust and his hopes to ash. "You have 30 days," the banker said, his voice barely above a whisper. Nathan could see the man felt bad about it, but sympathy wouldn't save his land. Nathan walked out of that bank into the blazing afternoon sun of June 1885, his boots kicking up dust on the main street. Hillsborough was bustling with miners and ranchers, the silver boom bringing wealth to some but not to him. His stomach growled, reminding him he had skipped breakfast and would likely skip supper too. Pride was a luxury he could not afford anymore, but it was all he had left besides that dying ranch. He was sitting on the steps of the general store, trying to figure out if he could sell his saddle for enough to buy flour and beans, when he heard her voice. "Excuse me, young man. You look like you could use a decent meal." Nathan looked up, squinting against the sun. The woman standing before him was handsome in that way that spoke of a life well lived. Her auburn hair, streaked with silver, was pulled back in a practical bun beneath a fine hat. She wore a traveling dress that had seen better days but was still respectable. Her green eyes held a sharpness that made him think she saw straight through to his empty pockets and emptier stomach. "I appreciate the offer, madam, but I cannot accept charity," Nathan said, though his stomach betrayed him with another growl. "It is not charity if we make it business," she said, settling herself on the step beside him without waiting for an invitation. "My name is Vivian Carter, and I find myself in a peculiar situation that might benefit us both." Nathan studied her. She had to be in her mid-40s at least, maybe pushing 50, but there was something vital about her, something that suggested she was not to be underestimated. "What kind of situation?" he asked, suspicion warring with desperation. "I am traveling west from Boston. My husband passed 6 months ago, leaving me with a small inheritance. Unfortunately, a woman traveling alone attracts the wrong sort of attention, and I have already had 2 incidents on the trail that convinced me I need the protection a husband's name provides." She looked at him directly, no shame or hesitation in her gaze. "I also happen to enjoy cooking, and I find myself wanting a home again rather than this endless traveling." Nathan felt heat climb up his neck. "Madam, I think you are mistaken about what I am. I think you are a young man in trouble who needs help, and I am a woman in trouble who needs help. I saw you come out of the bank. I saw your face." She folded her hands in her lap. "I am proposing a marriage of convenience. I have money enough to save a small ranch and keep it going for a good while. You have a name and a property that would give me respectability and safety. We would both benefit." "You do not even know me," Nathan said, his mind reeling. "I could be a scoundrel, a drunk. Worse." "Could be," Vivian agreed. "But I have gotten fairly good at reading people in my 47 years, and I see a proud young man who is starving rather than stealing. That tells me something about your character." She stood, brushing dust from her skirts. "I will be staying at the boarding house for 3 days. If you decide this arrangement might suit you, come find me. If not, I will move on and take my chances elsewhere." She walked away before he could respond, leaving Nathan sitting there with his mouth half open and his thoughts spinning like tumbleweeds in a dust devil. That night, Nathan sat in the ruins of his father's ranch house, eating the last of the beans, and thought about his options. He could let the bank take the land and try to hire on somewhere as a ranch hand, spending his life working another man's dream. He could head west himself, try his luck in the silver mines or the gold fields, though men died in those places every day. Or he could accept the offer of a woman twice his age and keep his father's land. Pride whispered that it was wrong, that a man should make his own way. But louder than pride was the memory of his father's voice. Land is everything, son. A man without land is just a tumbleweed, blowing wherever the wind takes him. 3 days later, Nathan stood outside the boarding house, his hat in his hands, his best shirt cleaned as well as he could manage. When Vivian came down the stairs to meet him, she was wearing a simple blue dress, and her expression was calm. "I will accept your offer," Nathan said, the words coming out rough. "But I want you to know that I will work to pay back every cent you put into the ranch. This might be a business arrangement, but I will not be a kept man." "I would expect nothing less," Vivian said. She offered her hand and they shook on it like business partners. They were married that afternoon by the circuit judge who happened to be in town. There were no guests, no celebration, just two strangers saying vows that felt hollow even as they were spoken. The judge seemed puzzled by the match but asked no questions as long as his fee was paid. Vivian had 3 trunks of belongings, and Nathan borrowed a wagon to haul them out to the ranch. The 7-mile ride was silent, awkward. Nathan kept sneaking glances at this woman who was now his wife, trying to understand what twist of fate had brought them to this point. Vivian sat straight-backed beside him, her eyes taking in the harsh landscape with what looked like satisfaction rather than dismay. "It is beautiful in its own way," she said finally as they passed between 2 red rock formations. "Different from Boston, but honest. I have grown tired of things that pretend to be what they are not." When they reached the ranch, Nathan felt shame wash over him. In daylight, with a stranger's eyes on it, he saw how run down everything had become. The house was small, just 3 rooms, and the roof had a leak he had not managed to fix. The barn was missing boards, and the corral fence was held together more by hope than nails. There were 2 horses in the paddock, both old and perhaps a dozen scrawny chickens scratching in the dirt. "I know it is not much," Nathan started, but Vivian was already climbing down from the wagon. "It has good bones," she said, walking toward the house. "And that is what matters. Everything else can be fixed with time and effort." They carried her trunks inside, and Vivian began unpacking with the efficiency of someone used to making do. She had brought linens, dishes, curtains, and practical items that the house desperately needed. She also had a small wooden box that she handled carefully, setting it on the mantel without opening it. "My husband and I were not blessed with children," she said, noticing Nathan's gaze on the box. "That box holds the few things I have to remember him by. He was a good man, but we married because it was expected, not because of any great passion. I cared for him in the end, but I will not pretend our marriage was a love story." Her honesty was startling. Nathan was used to people hiding behind propriety, saying what was expected rather than what was true. "I am sorry for your loss," he said, because it seemed like something should be said. "Thank you," Vivian replied. "And I am sorry about your father. The banker mentioned he had passed when I asked about properties in the area." Night fell quickly in the desert, and suddenly they were faced with the reality of their situation. They were married. This was their wedding night. Neither of them had spoken about the sleeping arrangements or what, if anything, was expected. Nathan cleared his throat. "I will sleep in the barn. You should have the bedroom." "That is foolish. You will freeze. The nights are still cold." Vivian stood in the doorway of the bedroom, her expression unreadable. "We are both adults, Nathan. We can share a house without impropriety. There is a sofa in the main room. We can take turns, or you can use it regularly until we figure out something better." "I will take the sofa," Nathan said quickly. The thought of this stranger in his father's bed, in his father's room, already felt odd enough. Vivian nodded and disappeared into the bedroom. Nathan heard her moving around, the sound of water being poured, the rustle of fabric. He stood in the main room feeling like an intruder in his own home, unsure what to do with himself. When Vivian emerged, she was wearing a practical nightgown and robe, her hair down around her shoulders. Without the careful styling, Nathan could see more gray in it, but also the rich auburn it must have been in her youth. She was still a handsome woman, and for the first time, Nathan felt something other than desperation about this arrangement. Perhaps it was not such a terrible thing. "I know this is strange," Vivian said, standing in the doorway. "I know neither of us expected to be here, but I want to tell you something that might make the strangeness a little easier." Nathan waited, his heart beating faster for reasons he could not name. "I did not choose you randomly," Vivian continued. "I spent 2 days in Hillsborough before I approached you, listening to people talk, learning about the town. I heard about the Sawyer ranch, about the young man trying to hold on to his father's land despite impossible odds. I heard people speak of your honesty, your hard work, your refusal to cheat or steal even when times got desperate. That is why I made my offer to you and not to someone else." Something tight in Nathan's chest loosened slightly. It mattered, knowing that. It felt less like charity and more like a choice based on merit, even if the whole situation was still awkward and strange. "Thank you for telling me that," he said. Vivian smiled, and it transformed her face, making her look younger, softer. "We should try to be honest with each other, I think. If this is going to work, we need honesty even more than we need affection." She went back into the bedroom, and Nathan lay down on the sofa, still fully dressed except for his boots. Sleep did not come easily. His mind kept turning over the events of the day, the vows he had spoken, the fact that he was now married to a woman he had known for less than a week. But exhaustion eventually claimed him, and when he woke to the smell of coffee and bacon, it took him a moment to remember where he was and why. Vivian was in the kitchen, already dressed for the day, her hair pinned up again. She had found his meager supplies and was making breakfast with an ease that spoke of long practice. "I thought we could go into town today," she said, sliding a plate of eggs and bacon in front of him. Real eggs, not the powdered kind he had been making do with. Real bacon, thick and salty and perfect. "We need to pay your debt to the bank, and I need to set up an account. Also, I would like to buy supplies to start fixing this place up properly." Nathan ate, trying not to shovel the food in like a starving dog, though that was exactly what he felt like. "You do not need to spend all your money immediately. We can make do." "Nathan, I did not come here to make do. I came here to build something." Vivian sat across from him with her own plate. "I have been making do my entire life, making do with a marriage that was comfortable but empty, making do with a life that looked perfect from the outside but felt hollow. I came west because I wanted something real, even if it is hard. So let us not make do. Let us build." Her words stirred something in him, a hope he had thought was dead. Maybe this strange arrangement could become something better than either of them had expected. They rode into Hillsborough together, and Nathan could feel the eyes on them. A young man and a woman old enough to be his mother, clearly together. He knew what people would think, what they would say. But Vivian seemed unbothered by the attention, walking into the bank with her head high and her purpose clear. The same banker who had handed Nathan the foreclosure notice now sat across from them, his expression shifting from confusion to surprise to something like relief as Vivian laid out bills on his desk. "This covers the debt and 6 months of breathing room," she said crisply. "I trust you will update your records accordingly and provide us with documentation." "Yes, madam, of course, Mrs. Sawyer," the banker said, stumbling over the name. He looked at Nathan with what might have been respect or might have been pity. Nathan found he did not care which. They left the bank with the deed secured and went to the general store, where Vivian purchased flour, sugar, coffee, dried beans, rice, cornmeal, and a dozen other staples. She bought fabric for curtains, wood for repairs, nails, tools, and seeds for a vegetable garden. "You aim to plant in this heat?" the store owner asked, skeptical. "I aim to try," Vivian replied. "And if it fails, I will try again. That is what people do out here, is it not?" The store owner grinned. "Yes, madam, it surely is." On the ride back, the wagon heavy with supplies, Nathan felt something shifting in him. This woman beside him was not what he had expected. She was practical, determined, and fearless in a way that commanded respect. "Why did you really come west?" he asked as they bounced along the rutted road. "You said you were tired of pretending, but you could have stayed in Boston and lived quietly as a widow. That would have been easier." Vivian was quiet for a long moment. "My husband left me a little money, but his family contested the will. They thought I was not entitled to it because we had no children, because I had not given them an heir. I could have fought them in court, spent years in legal battles. Or I could take what I had managed to secure and start fresh somewhere they could not touch me or control me." She looked at him. "I spent 30 years being the perfect wife, hosting the perfect dinners, saying the perfect things. I wore myself down to nothing trying to fit into a mold that was never made for me. When he died, I realized I had a choice. I could keep pretending, or I could go find out who I actually was. So here I am." "That took courage," Nathan said. "Or desperation," Vivian replied with a slight smile. "Sometimes they look the same." Over the following weeks, they fell into a rhythm. Nathan worked the land, trying to coax life from the stubborn soil while Vivian transformed the house. She was an excellent cook, and for the first time in 2 years, Nathan sat down to proper meals 3 times a day. She sewed curtains that softened the harsh sunlight, patched the roof, and planted a garden that she watered religiously from the well. They were polite to each other, almost formal. Nathan called her Vivian and she called him Nathan, and they moved around each other like dancers who had not quite learned the steps. He still slept on the sofa, and she still kept to the bedroom, and neither spoke about the strangeness of their arrangement. But slowly, things began to change. It started small. Vivian laughed at something Nathan said about one of the chickens, a genuine laugh that lit up her whole face. Nathan found himself working harder on the house repairs because he wanted to see her smile when she noticed. They began talking more over meals, sharing stories about their pasts, learning each other. Nathan told her about his childhood on the ranch, about his mother who had died giving birth to a baby that did not survive, about his father who had loved this land with a fierceness that bordered on obsession. Vivian told him about growing up as the daughter of a shopkeeper, about marrying at 19 because it was what was expected, about years of trying to have a child and the grief when it never happened. "The doctors said there was nothing wrong with either of us, but it just never took," she said one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky orange and purple. "After a while, we stopped trying. I think we both knew our marriage was more obligation than passion, and bringing a child into that seemed wrong." "Do you wish things had been different?" Nathan asked. "I wish I had been braver sooner," Vivian said. "But I cannot change the past, so I am trying to make the future something worth having." One day, about 6 weeks into their marriage, Nathan came back from checking the fence line to find Vivian struggling to move a heavy trunk. Without thinking, he stepped in to help, and they ended up standing very close together, both holding the trunk, both suddenly aware of the proximity. "Thank you," Vivian said softly, and Nathan realized her eyes had flecks of gold in the green. "Any time," he replied, his voice coming out rougher than intended. That night, lying on the sofa, Nathan found himself thinking about Vivian in ways he had not allowed himself to before. She was 24 years older than him, yes, but that seemed less important than the fact that she made him laugh, that she was strong and smart and unafraid. She was beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with youth and everything to do with character. He was falling in love with his wife, and the realization terrified him. Another week passed, and the tension between them grew. They were more careful around each other now, aware of every accidental touch, every lingering glance. Nathan caught Vivian watching him sometimes as he worked, her expression thoughtful. She blushed when he caught her looking, something that made her seem younger, more vulnerable. The change came on a night when a summer storm rolled in, violent and sudden as desert storms could be. Thunder shook the house, and lightning turned the darkness bright as day. Nathan was lying on the sofa when he heard a crash from the bedroom, followed by Vivian's cry. He was through the door in seconds, his heart pounding. Vivian was standing beside the bed, her nightgown soaked. The roof leak he thought he had fixed had opened up again, directly over the bed, and rain was pouring through. "I am fine, just startled," Vivian said, pushing wet hair out of her face. "But the bed is ruined." Nathan grabbed buckets and pans, trying to catch the worst of the water. The bed was indeed soaked through, and there was no way Vivian could sleep there tonight. "You take the sofa," Nathan said. "I will sleep on the floor." "Do not be ridiculous. We are both adults. The sofa is large enough for two if we are practical about it." Vivian was already gathering dry blankets from the trunk. "I trust you, Nathan, and we are married. There is no shame in sharing space during an emergency." So they found themselves on the sofa together, trying to maintain respectful distance in a space not really meant for two. The storm raged outside, shaking the windows and making the house groan. They lay stiffly, careful not to touch. "Nathan," Vivian said after a long silence, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "You regret this? Marrying me?" Nathan turned his head to look at her. In the darkness, with lightning flashing through the windows, he could just make out her profile. "No, do you?" "No," she said softly. "That surprises me. I thought this would feel more like another obligation, another thing I was doing because I had to, but it does not feel that way." "How does it feel?" Nathan asked, his heart racing. Vivian was quiet for so long he thought she might not answer. Then she said, "It feels like the first real thing I have done in my entire life. It feels like coming home, even though I had never been here before." Nathan reached out in the darkness and found her hand. Her fingers were cool, slim, real. She squeezed back, and they lay there holding hands like children afraid of the storm, except they were not children, and it was not the storm they were afraid of. "I need to tell you something," Nathan said. "And I do not want you to feel obligated to respond or feel any particular way. I just need to say it." "All right," Vivian whispered. "I am falling in love with you," Nathan said, the words tumbling out. "I know this was supposed to be a business arrangement. I know you are older than me, and people talk, and this whole thing is strange. But somewhere between the foreclosure notice and right now, you became more than a solution to a problem. You became the person I want to talk to at the end of the day. You became the reason I work harder, laugh more, hope again." Vivian made a small sound, and Nathan felt her turn toward him. "Nathan, I am old enough to be your mother. I do not care. People will say terrible things. Let them. I cannot give you children. That part of my life is over." I do not care about that either. I care about you, just you. Vivian was crying now. He could hear it in her breathing. I am falling in love with you too. I have been trying so hard not to, telling myself it was inappropriate, that I was taking advantage, that the age difference made it wrong. But Nathan, when you look at me, I feel like I am 20 again. When you smile, I feel like my heart might burst. And it terrifies me because I never felt this with my first husband in 30 years of marriage, and I have felt it with you in less than 2 months. Nathan pulled her closer and she came willingly, fitting against him like she was made for that space. He kissed her forehead, her temple, the corner of her eye where tears tracked down. "May I kiss you properly?" he asked, his voice shaking. "Yes," Vivian breathed, and then his lips found hers in the darkness. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative. Two people learning each other. But it deepened quickly, became something hungry and desperate and real. All the tension of the past weeks poured into that kiss, all the wanting and waiting and wondering. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Vivian laughed, a sound of pure joy. "This is crazy." "Yes," Nathan agreed, kissing her again because now that he had started he could not seem to stop. "What do we do now?" Vivian asked. "Whatever we want," Nathan said. "We are married, we are in love. Everything else is just details." They spent that night wrapped in each other's arms on the sofa, kissing and talking and kissing some more. They did not rush beyond that, content to savor this new development, this shift from arrangement to affection to love. When morning came and the storm had passed, Nathan climbed up to fix the roof properly while Vivian hung the mattress to dry in the sun. They worked side by side all day, and every time their eyes met, they smiled like conspirators sharing the best secret. That night, with the bed dried and the roof repaired, they stood awkwardly in the main room as bedtime approached. "I do not want to sleep on the sofa anymore," Nathan said, "but I also do not want you to feel pressured." Vivian walked to him and took both his hands. "I am 47 years old, Nathan. I know my own mind. I want to be your wife in every sense of the word, if you want that too." "I want that," Nathan said fervently. "I want everything with you." She led him to the bedroom, and if they were both nervous, they were also in love, and that made all the difference. They learned each other slowly, carefully, with tenderness and passion mixed together. Vivian had more experience, but Nathan made up for it with enthusiasm and a desire to please her that touched her heart. Afterward, lying tangled together in the darkness, Vivian traced patterns on Nathan's chest. "I never knew it could be like that. All those years, I thought passion was something that only existed in novels." "Maybe it needed the right person," Nathan suggested, kissing the top of her head. "Or maybe I needed to be brave enough to claim what I wanted instead of settling for what was expected." She propped herself up on one elbow to look at him. "You have given me a gift, Nathan Sawyer. You have given me permission to be myself, to want things, to feel things. I thought that part of me was dead, but you brought it back to life." "You did the same for me," Nathan said. "Before you, I was just surviving, just trying to hang on. Now I feel like I am actually living." They made love again in the early morning hours, slower this time, savoring each touch and kiss. And when the sun rose on their new beginning, they rose with it, ready to face whatever came next together. The weeks that followed were the happiest of Nathan's life. He and Vivian worked the ranch together, their partnership becoming stronger with each passing day. She proved to be as capable with livestock as she was in the kitchen, handling the horses with a gentle firmness they responded to. They went into Hillsboro together one Saturday and faced down the stairs and whispers. Nathan kept his arm around Vivian's waist, making it clear that she was his wife in every sense and he would tolerate no disrespect. One woman, Mrs. Peterson, the wife of the feed store owner, approached them with a pinched expression. "It is quite unusual, Mrs. Sawyer, for a woman of your age to take up with such a young man. People are talking." "Let them talk," Vivian said pleasantly. "I find that people who have nothing better to do than gossip about others generally have very boring lives themselves." Mrs. Peterson's face turned red. "Well, I never." "That is a shame," Nathan said mildly. "Everyone should experience real happiness at least once." They walked away, leaving Mrs. Peterson sputtering, and once they were out of sight, they both burst into laughter. "Did you see her face?" Vivian gasped. "You were magnificent," Nathan said, kissing her right there on the street, not caring who saw. Not everyone was judgmental. The banker, Mr. Henderson, tipped his hat respectfully when they passed. The store owner where they bought supplies made a point of asking how the garden was growing and if they needed anything special ordered. Slowly, they built a place for themselves in the community, earning respect through hard work and genuine love for each other. By late August, the garden was producing vegetables, and Vivian spent long hours preserving food for the winter. Nathan managed to buy 3 young heifers and a bull with money they had saved, the beginning of a new herd. The ranch was coming back to life. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Vivian said, "I want to add a room to the house." "For what?" Nathan asked, though he was already mentally calculating the cost and effort. "For us. A proper master bedroom with space for a real wardrobe and maybe even a writing desk. I want to make this place feel like a home, not just a shelter." She paused. "Also, if we are going to spend the rest of our lives here, I want it to be comfortable." "The rest of our lives," Nathan repeated, liking the sound of that. "You plan to stick around then?" "I do not have anywhere else to be," Vivian said, smiling. "And even if I did, I would choose here. I would choose you." They started planning the addition, sketching ideas in the evenings. Nathan would do most of the work himself, but they would need to hire help for the heavy lifting. It was a project that would take months, but they had time. They had the rest of their lives. In September, Nathan's nearest neighbor, Frank Morrison, who owned a much larger spread 5 miles west, stopped by with his eldest son, David. Nathan had met them a few times over the years, but had never been close. "Heard you got married," Frank said, his eyes curious as he took in Vivian. "Wanted to welcome your wife proper like and see if you needed any help with roundup season coming." "That is kind of you," Nathan said carefully, unsure of the man's intentions, but Frank proved to be genuine. He and David spent the afternoon helping Nathan repair the corral fence, and Vivian served them all a hearty lunch. By the time they left, Frank had invited them to a community barn dance the following month. "People are curious," Frank said bluntly as he mounted his horse. "But most folks around here judge you by your work and your word, not your personal business." "You have proven yourself a hard worker, Nathan and Mrs. Sawyer. My wife would be glad to know you. She gets lonely for female company." "I would like that very much," Vivian said, and she sounded like she meant it. The barn dance was held at the Morrison Ranch, and Nathan was nervous as they rode over in the wagon. Vivian was wearing a dress she had made herself from fabric they had bought in town, a deep blue that brought out her eyes. She had arranged her hair carefully, and Nathan thought she looked beautiful. "If anyone says anything unkind, we leave," Nathan told her as they approached the barn, which was lit up with lanterns and full of music. "If anyone says anything unkind, I will handle it," Vivian corrected gently. "I have dealt with worse than frontier gossip, believe me." But the evening went better than either of them had hoped. Frank's wife, Martha, embraced Vivian like an old friend, delighted to have another educated woman to talk to. Several ranchers approached Nathan to discuss cattle prices and water rights, treating him as an equal now that he was a married landowner again. There were a few cold shoulders and whispered comments, but mostly they were accepted. When the dancing started, Nathan led Vivian out onto the floor, and they moved together like they had been doing this for years. "You are a good dancer," Vivian said, surprised. "My mother taught me before she died. She said a man should know how to dance properly so his wife would not be embarrassed." Nathan spun her, and she laughed, the sound carrying over the music. They danced 3 more dances before taking a break to get punch. As they stood catching their breath, a young woman approached them. She could not have been more than 20, with blonde hair and a nervous expression. "Mrs. Sawyer, my name is Emily Winters. I just wanted to say that I think what you did was brave." "What I did?" Vivian asked, confused, coming west alone, starting over. "Marrying for practical reasons, but finding love anyway." Emily glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "I am supposed to marry Thomas Bentley next month because our fathers arranged it, but I do not love him. I do not even like him very much. Everyone says I should be grateful because he is wealthy, but I want what you have. I want to choose for myself." Vivian's expression softened. "I cannot tell you what to do, Emily, but I can tell you that I wasted 30 years being what everyone else wanted me to be. Do not make my mistake. Life is too short and too precious to spend it being unhappy to please others." Emily's eyes filled with tears. She squeezed Vivian's hand. "Thank you." She hurried away, and Nathan pulled Vivian close. "You are going to start a revolution among the young ladies of New Mexico Territory." "Good," Vivian said firmly. "Women should have choices. I did not realize how important that was until I finally made my own." As the evening wore on, Nathan noticed Emily talking animatedly with a young ranch hand who clearly adored her, and he hoped she would find her courage. October brought cooler weather and the hard work of preparing for winter. Nathan and Vivian worked from dawn until dusk, cutting firewood, repairing outbuildings, making sure the livestock had adequate shelter. The heifers were pregnant, a promising sign for the spring. One afternoon, as Nathan was hauling water from the well, he saw Vivian standing in the garden, one hand pressed to her lower back, wincing. "Are you all right?" he asked, immediately concerned. "Just a little sore. I am not as young as I used to be, and all this work takes its toll." She tried to smile, but Nathan saw the pain in her eyes. "That is it. You are taking the rest of the day off. Go inside and rest." "Nathan, I am fine." "Vivian, please." He took her hands. "Let me take care of you for once. You have been working yourself too hard." She relented, and Nathan helped her inside, settling her on the sofa with pillows and a blanket. He made her tea and rubbed her back until she finally relaxed. "I hate feeling weak," Vivian admitted. "You are the strongest person I know, but even strong people need rest." Nathan kissed her forehead. "Besides, I like taking care of you." "I like it too," Vivian said softly. "I have spent most of my life taking care of others. It is strange but wonderful to have someone care for me." They spent the evening quietly, Nathan reading aloud from a book while Vivian dozed against his shoulder. It was domestic and peaceful, and Nathan found himself thinking about the future more concretely. He wanted years of evenings like this. He wanted to grow old with this woman, to see her hair turn fully silver, to hold her hand through whatever came. In November, word came that Emily Winters had broken her engagement and run off with the ranch hand, Jacob Murphy. The scandal was the talk of the county, and opinion was sharply divided. Some called Emily selfish and foolish. Others, mostly younger people and women, quietly approved. Martha Morrison came to visit Vivian and told her the whole story over coffee. "Emily's father is livid, but Jacob's family is respectable enough, and he truly loves her. They eloped to Santa Fe and came back married." Martha leaned forward. "Emily told her mother that you inspired her, that you showed her it was possible to choose your own path. I hope she finds happiness, Vivian said. Real happiness, not the kind that looks good from the outside but feels empty inside. You did a good thing, Vivian, whether you meant to or not. Martha squeezed her hand. The world is changing, even out here. Women are starting to realize they can have more than what their fathers and husbands decide to give them. As winter settled in, Nathan and Vivian drew closer together, bound by love and shared purpose. The nights were cold and they slept wrapped around each other, talking in the darkness about their dreams and fears. "You ever wish I were younger?" Vivian asked one night. "That I could give you children?" "No," Nathan said honestly. "I wish I could make you believe that I love you exactly as you are. Yes, you are older than me. Yes, we will not have children. But Vivian, you have given me so much more than that. You have given me partnership, passion, friendship, and love. You have saved my land and my life. What more could I possibly want? Sometimes I worry that you will regret this. That 10 years from now, when I am in my 50s and you are still young, you will wish you had chosen differently." Nathan rolled over to face her, his hand cupping her cheek. "In 10 years, I will still love you. In 20 years, in 30 years, I will still love you. Age is just numbers, Vivian. What we have is real, and it does not fade because of birthdays." She kissed him then, deeply and passionately, and they made love with an intensity that left them both breathless. Afterward, Vivian cried, but they were happy tears. "I never thought I would have this," she whispered. "I never thought anyone would love me like this." "I will love you like this every day for the rest of our lives," Nathan promised. "That is my vow to you, more binding than the ones we said in front of the judge." Christmas came, and they celebrated quietly on the ranch. Vivian made a feast from their stored provisions, and Nathan surprised her with a gift. A writing desk he had built himself, with careful dovetail joints and a smooth finish. "It is for the new room," he said as Vivian ran her hands over it, her eyes bright with tears. "So you have a place to write letters or keep accounts or whatever you want." "It is beautiful," she said. "The most thoughtful gift anyone has ever given me." She gave him a new saddle, one she had ordered from a craftsman in Santa Fe and hidden in the barn. It was finer than anything Nathan had ever owned, made of good leather with his initials tooled into it. "So everyone knows you are Nathan Sawyer, rancher and landowner," Vivian said. "Not some poor kid barely scraping by." "I am Nathan Sawyer, husband to the most remarkable woman in the territory," Nathan corrected, pulling her into his arms. "That is the only identity that matters." They spent Christmas evening dancing to no music in the main room, Nathan humming a waltz while Vivian laughed. They were absurdly happy, impossibly in love, and grateful for every moment they had together. When spring came to New Mexico territory in 1886, it brought renewed life to the land and to the ranch. The heifers all gave birth successfully, giving them 5 healthy calves. The garden flourished with Vivian's careful tending, and Nathan finished the addition to the house, creating a spacious master bedroom with large windows that let in the morning light. They moved Vivian's writing desk into the new room along with a larger bed Nathan had purchased in Santa Fe. The first night in their new space, they christened it properly, making love in the wash of moonlight through those big windows. "This is ours," Vivian said afterward, her head on Nathan's chest. "Every board, every nail, every inch of this place is ours because we built it together." "Best investment I ever made was marrying you," Nathan teased, and Vivian swatted his chest playfully. "I believe I was the one who invested in you, if we are being technical. Then we have both profited beyond measure." In May, they hosted their first real social event, a barbecue for their neighbors. Frank and Martha Morrison came with their children, along with a dozen other families from around Hillsborough. Even Emily Winters and her husband Jacob attended, Emily now glowing with early pregnancy. "You look happy," Vivian told her as they set out food together. "I am. Jacob is a good man and we love each other truly. It was hard disappointing my family, but it was worth it." Emily smiled. "You were right. Life is too short to spend it being unhappy." The barbecue was a success, and by the time the last guests left as the sun was setting, Nathan and Vivian were exhausted but satisfied. They had built something real here, not just a ranch but a life, not just a marriage but a home. That night, lying in bed, Nathan said, "I have been thinking." "That sounds dangerous," Vivian teased. "I want to expand the herd, maybe buy some sheep too, diversify a little. The land can support more and we have the money saved to do it right." He propped himself up on one elbow. "But I want to make sure you agree. This is your investment too." "It stopped being an investment a long time ago, Nathan. It is our life. And yes, I think that is a good idea." She touched his face gently. "You have such good instincts about the land and the animals. I trust your judgment completely." Over the next year, they grew the ranch systematically. Nathan bought a small flock of sheep and hired a young Mexican man named Carlos to help with the increased workload. Carlos was quiet and hardworking, and his wife Rosa became a good friend to Vivian, teaching her traditional cooking methods and learning English in exchange. The ranch prospered in a modest but steady way. They were not wealthy by any means, but they were comfortable, and the debts were paid. More importantly, they were happy. On their second wedding anniversary, Nathan took Vivian on a trip to Santa Fe. They stayed in a hotel, ate in restaurants, and walked through the old plaza like tourists. It was the first real vacation either of them had taken in years, and they relished it. "I want to do this every year," Nathan said as they sat in the hotel room on their last night. "Take a trip, just the two of us, and remember why we fell in love." "We fell in love because you were starving and I was desperate," Vivian said with a laugh. "No, we got married because of that. We fell in love because we saw each other clearly and liked what we saw." Nathan pulled her close. "And I want to keep seeing you clearly for the rest of my life. You are a romantic, Nathan Sawyer. Who knew? You made me one. Before you, I was just trying to survive. You taught me how to live." They made love slowly that night, savoring each touch, each kiss, each whispered word. They had learned each other's bodies intimately over the past 2 years, knew exactly how to bring pleasure, how to draw out the moment until they were both trembling with need. As summer turned to fall in 1887, Vivian began feeling tired more often. She tried to hide it, but Nathan noticed everything about her. "You need to see a doctor," he said after finding her sitting down in the middle of hanging laundry, breathing hard. "I am fine, just getting older. Vivian, please humor me." They went to Hillsborough to see Doc Martin, an older man who had been practicing medicine for 30 years. He examined Vivian thoroughly while Nathan paced in the waiting room, his worry growing with each passing minute. When Doc Martin finally emerged, his expression was neutral. "She needs to slow down. Her heart is strong, but she is pushing herself too hard for a woman her age. If she rests more, takes things easier, she should be fine." Nathan felt relief wash through him. "She will rest. I will make sure of it." At home, Nathan insisted on hiring Rosa to help with the housework and cooking several days a week. Vivian protested at first but eventually accepted that she needed help. "I hate feeling useless," she admitted one evening. "You are not useless. You are wise enough to know when to ask for help." "There is a difference." Nathan pulled her into his lap, holding her close. "Besides, I need you healthy and happy for the next 40 or 50 years. That means taking care of yourself." "I will not live another 40 years, Nathan. Be realistic." "Fine. Then I need you for the next 30 years." The point stands. Vivian laughed, resting her head on his shoulder. How did I get so lucky to find you? I ask myself the same question every day. With Rosa's help and a reduced workload, Vivian's health stabilized. She spent more time on her writing, discovering a talent for recording the stories of women who had come west, preserving their histories. She interviewed Martha Morrison, Emily Murphy, and a dozen other women, filling notebooks with their words. Someone should remember what it was really like, Vivian told Nathan. Not the sanitized version that will end up in history books, but the truth. The hard parts and the triumphant parts and everything in between. Nathan encouraged her, proud of this new project. He built her shelves for her notebooks and bought her good pens and ink from the general store. By 1889, the ranch was well established, and Nathan and Vivian had become respected members of the community. They were known for their fairness with hired hands, their willingness to help neighbors in need, and their deep love for each other that made even skeptics soften. Martha Morrison told Vivian over tea one afternoon, "You two have something special. Everyone can see it. The way Nathan looks at you, the way you light up when he enters the room, it is what every marriage should be, but so few are." "I know how lucky I am," Vivian said softly. "Every day I wake up grateful that I was brave enough to come west, that I found him, that he saw past the age difference to the person underneath." "He is lucky too," Martha pointed out. "You saved his ranch, but you also saved him. He told Frank once that before you he was giving up, just waiting for the inevitable. You gave him hope again." That evening, Vivian told Nathan what Martha had said. They were sitting on the porch, watching the sunset as they did most evenings, comfortable in their routines. "Is that true? That you were giving up?" "Yes," Nathan admitted. "I was 23 and felt like life was over. The land was dying, I was starving, and I could not see any way forward. Then you appeared like some kind of miracle, offering me a chance when I had run out of chances." "I think we saved each other," Vivian said. "I was running away from a life that was suffocating me, and you gave me a reason to run toward something instead. You gave me purpose and love and a home. That is worth more than any amount of money." Nathan pulled her close, kissing her temple. "I love you. I know I say it all the time, but I want to make sure you never doubt it. I love you too. More than I thought possible, more than I have words for." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple. This was happiness, Nathan thought. Not grand gestures or dramatic moments, but quiet evenings with the person you loved, building a life together day by day. As the new decade approached, Nathan and Vivian made plans for the future. They wanted to add a proper barn, expand the sheep operation, maybe buy some land adjacent to theirs that was coming up for sale. They dreamed together, planned together, worked together. On New Year's Eve 1889, they stood on their porch at midnight, bundled in coats against the cold, and toasted the new decade with apple cider. "To 1890, Nathan said, raising his cup, "and to many more years together." "To us," Vivian added, "and to the crazy, wonderful life we have built." They clinked their cups together and drank, then kissed as fireworks exploded in town, visible even from 7 miles away. The new year stretched before them full of possibility, and they were ready for it together. The spring of 1890 brought unexpected news. Emily Murphy arrived at their ranch one morning, her second child on her hip and excitement in her eyes. "Jacob and I are moving," she announced. "His uncle died and left him a ranch in Colorado. It is a good opportunity, but it means we are leaving." Vivian hugged her, genuinely sorry to see her go. "I will miss you. I will miss you too, but I wanted to tell you something before I left." Emily set her child down to toddle around. When I was engaged to Thomas Bentley, I was planning to go through with it. I thought that was just how life worked. You accept what you are given and make the best of it. But then I saw you at that barn dance, and I saw how Nathan looked at you, how you looked at each other. I saw real love, the kind that does not care what other people think. And I thought, if she can be brave enough to choose for herself, so can I. I am glad you did, Vivian said, tears in her eyes. You and Jacob are good together. We are, and it is because you showed me it was possible. Emily hugged her again. Thank you for being brave first. Thank you for showing all of us that we can choose our own happiness. After Emily left, Vivian told Nathan about their conversation. I never intended to inspire anyone. I was just trying to survive and find some happiness for myself. That is how the best revolutions start, Nathan said. One person deciding they deserve better and having the courage to reach for it. Life continued its steady rhythm through 1890 and into 1891. Carlos and Rosa had a baby, a little girl they named Maria, and Vivian became a doting honorary grandmother. Nathan teased her about it, but he loved seeing her with the baby, loved the soft expression she got when she held Maria. You wish we had children? Nathan asked one night after visiting Carlos and Rosa. Vivian thought for a long moment. Sometimes I wonder what our children would have looked like, what kind of people they would have been. But Nathan, I do not regret the life we have. We have each other, we have this land, we have a community we have built. That is enough. More than enough. It is more than I ever dreamed of, Nathan agreed. In the fall of 1891, Nathan turned 30. Vivian made him a cake and invited their closest friends for a small celebration. As Nathan looked around the table at Frank and Martha Morrison, Carlos and Rosa with baby Maria, the hired hands who had become like family, and his beloved wife smiling at him from the other end of the table, he felt a contentment so deep it nearly hurt. Speech. Frank called out and everyone took up the chant. Nathan stood, embarrassed but also moved. I am not good with words, but I want to say something. 6 years ago, I was ready to lose everything. I was alone, broke, and without hope. Then Vivian walked into my life and changed everything. He looked at his wife, who was watching him with shining eyes. She saved my ranch, yes, but more importantly, she saved me. She taught me what love really means, what partnership really means. She gave me a reason to wake up every morning and work hard, a reason to dream about the future instead of just surviving the present. So on my birthday, I want to say thank you. Thank you to my wife for taking a chance on a starving kid with nothing to offer but a failing ranch and a stubborn heart. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for building this life with me. Vivian was crying openly now, and Martha was dabbing at her eyes with her napkin. Even Frank looked suspiciously misty. To Nathan and Vivian, Frank called out, raising his glass, and everyone echoed the toast. Later, when everyone had gone home and they were alone in their bedroom, Vivian wrapped her arms around Nathan. That was the most beautiful thing anyone has ever said about me. Every word was true. I know. That is what made it so beautiful. She kissed him deeply. I love you, Nathan Sawyer. I will love you until the day I die and probably beyond that too. Good. Because I plan on loving you forever, so it would be inconvenient if you stopped. They made love tenderly that night, a celebration of years together and years yet to come. Nathan traced the lines that time had drawn on Vivian's face, the silver in her hair, the softness of her body, and thought she had never been more beautiful. You are staring, Vivian murmured. I like looking at you. Is that a crime? If it is, I am guilty too. They fell asleep tangled together, content in a way that only comes from years of loving someone deeply and being loved in return. The next several years passed in a blur of seasons and small joys. The ranch continued to prosper. They added more land, more livestock, and a second hired hand, a young man named Thomas who dreamed of owning his own spread someday. Vivian's collection of women's stories grew until she had dozens of notebooks filled with histories that would otherwise have been lost. In 1894, they weathered a harsh winter that killed several head of cattle but brought them closer together as they fought to save what they could. In the spring of 1895, they finally paid off the last of the debts from Nathan's father, owning the land free and clear. They celebrated by taking another trip to Santa Fe, staying in the same hotel where they had celebrated their second anniversary. "Remember how scared we were back then," Vivian said as they walked through the plaza. "How new everything was. I was terrified you would realize you had made a mistake marrying me. I was terrified you would wake up one day and see me as the old woman I was becoming instead of the person you fell in love with." Nathan stopped walking and pulled her into an embrace right there in the middle of the plaza, not caring who saw. "You are the person I fell in love with. Age has nothing to do with it. Every year with you is better than the last. Every gray hair, every laugh line, every change just makes me love you more because it means we have had more time together." "How did you get so wise?" Vivian asked, her voice thick with emotion. "I learned from the best." By 1897, Nathan was 35 and Vivian was 59, and they had been married for 12 years. The ranch was thriving, their love was deep and true, and they were surrounded by friends and community. Life was good. One evening in late summer, as they sat on their porch watching the sunset as they had done thousands of times before, Vivian said, "I want to write our story." "Our story?" "Yes. The woman who came west running from an empty life, and the young man who married her out of desperation, and how they fell in love against all odds. I want to write it down so people will know that love can find you anywhere, at any age, in any circumstance." "I think that is a wonderful idea," Nathan said. "But you have to promise to make me sound at least a little bit heroic. I cannot be just the starving kid." Vivian laughed. "You were heroic. You were brave enough to accept help, brave enough to take a chance, brave enough to love someone everyone said was wrong for you. That takes more courage than any gunfight or cattle drive." "Then we were both heroes," Nathan said, "because you did the same." Vivian spent the next year writing their story, working on it in the mornings when the light was good and her mind was fresh. Nathan would read passages over her shoulder sometimes, marveling at how she made their simple life sound like an epic romance. "It was an epic romance," Vivian insisted. "Just because it happened on a small ranch in New Mexico instead of in a castle in Europe does not make it less grand." In 1899, Vivian finished her manuscript. She did not try to publish it, but had it bound at a printer in Santa Fe and gave it to Nathan as a gift on their 14th wedding anniversary. "This is our legacy," she said as he opened the leather-bound volume and saw their story written out in careful prose. "Long after we are gone, someone will read this and know that we existed, that we loved each other, that our lives meant something." Nathan read the entire thing that night, staying up long after Vivian had gone to bed, reading by lamplight. He cried at parts, laughed at others, and felt his heart swell with love for this remarkable woman who had walked into his life and changed everything. When he finally came to bed, he pulled Vivian close and whispered, "Thank you for everything. For saving me, for loving me, for giving me a life worth living." "Thank you for letting me," Vivian whispered back. As the new century approached, Nathan and Vivian made plans for a big celebration. They would be hosting a party at the ranch for all their friends and neighbors, welcoming the 1900s together. On New Year's Eve 1899, their house was full of people, laughter, and music. Carlos played guitar while Rosa sang. The Morrison children, now adults themselves, danced in the main room. Thomas the hired hand courted Martha and Frank's youngest daughter in the corner. And Nathan and Vivian stood in the middle of it all, surrounded by the community they had helped build, the life they had created together. As midnight approached, everyone gathered outside to watch for the new century. Nathan held Vivian's hand, looking at her profile in the torchlight, still finding her as beautiful as the day she had offered him that first meal. "Any regrets?" he asked softly. "Not a single one," Vivian said. "You?" "Only that I did not have more years with you. But I will take whatever we get and be grateful for every moment." The countdown began, and as everyone shouted, "Happy New Year!" and the new century officially began, Nathan kissed his wife, tasting salt from her happy tears, feeling her smile against his lips. "To the next 100 years," he said. "I do not think we will make it quite that long," Vivian said with a laugh. "Then to the next 20, 30, however many we get, and I will love you through every single one of them. I will love you too, forever and always." They kissed again as fireworks exploded overhead, as their friends cheered, as the new century stretched out before them full of unknown tomorrows. But whatever came, they would face it together. Two people who had found each other against all odds and built a love that would last a lifetime. The early years of the new century brought changes. Cars started appearing in Hillsborough, though Nathan and Vivian kept their horses and wagon, comfortable with the old ways. The ranch continued to thrive, and they added a small orchard, growing apples and peaches that Vivian turned into preserves. In 1902, Carlos and Rosa bought a small plot of land adjacent to theirs and started their own ranch with financial help from Nathan and Vivian. Maria, now a bright girl of 11, split her time between helping her parents and keeping Vivian company, learning to read and write from the older woman. "You are good with her," Nathan observed one day, watching Vivian patiently explain grammar while Maria listened with rapt attention. "I wish I had been able to have children," Vivian admitted. "But in a way, Maria feels like the grandchild I never had biological children to give me. Rosa says I can claim her as my adopted granddaughter if I want." "Then we will," Nathan said. "Family is what we make it, not just what blood gives us." By 1905, Nathan was 43 and Vivian was 67. Vivian moved slower now, her joints stiff in the mornings, her energy not what it had been. But her mind was sharp as ever, and her love for Nathan had only deepened with time. They spent their evenings on the porch as always, talking about the day, the ranch, their memories. Sometimes Vivian would read passages from her notebooks, the stories of women she had interviewed over the years, and Nathan would listen and marvel at the lives that had been lived in this harsh territory. "You should try to publish these," Nathan said. "These stories deserve to be shared." "Maybe someday. For now, I am content knowing they are preserved." Vivian leaned against him. "Besides, I would rather spend what time I have left with you than dealing with publishers." "Do not talk like that," Nathan said, his chest tightening. "Nathan, I am 67 years old. I have lived a good, full life. We need to be realistic." "I do not want to be realistic. I want you to live forever." Vivian smiled sadly. "I will live forever in your memories, in the ranch we built, in that book I wrote about us. That is immortality enough." In 1907, Vivian's health began to decline more noticeably. She tired easily and sometimes had trouble catching her breath. Doc Martin, now quite old himself, examined her and pulled Nathan aside. "Her heart is wearing out," he said gently. "There is nothing to be done except make her comfortable and let her enjoy whatever time she has left." Nathan felt his world tilt. How long? Could be months, could be years. There is no way to know for certain. Nathan devoted himself to making sure Vivian was comfortable and happy. He hired Rosa full-time to help with the house and cooking, insisting that Vivian rest as much as possible. Vivian protested, but eventually gave in when she realized how important it was to Nathan. "I do not want to spend my last days being an invalid," she said. "You are not an invalid. You are my wife, and I am taking care of you the way you took care of me all those years ago. Let me do this." They spent long hours together, sometimes talking, sometimes just sitting in comfortable silence. Nathan would read to her from books they both loved, or Vivian would tell stories from her youth in Boston, memories she had never shared before. "I want to tell you something," Vivian said one evening in the fall of 1908. They were in bed, Nathan holding her against his chest, her breathing a little labored but steady. "Anything," Nathan said. "When I came west, I was running away from a life that had suffocated me. I thought I was too old for grand passions, too old for real love. I thought the best I could hope for was security and maybe companionship." She turned to look at him. "But Nathan, you gave me the most beautiful love story of my life. These 23 years with you have been worth every year that came before. You made me feel young and vital and cherished. You gave me a reason to wake up every morning and be grateful. Whatever happens next, I want you to know that." Nathan was crying openly now. "You cannot leave me. I do not know how to do this without you." "Yes, you do. You are strong and capable and surrounded by people who love you. The ranch will go on, life will go on, and I will still be with you in every corner of this house, every inch of this land. You will never really lose me. It is not the same. No, it is not, but it is what we have." Vivian wiped his tears with her thumb. "Promise me something, anything. Promise me you will not waste whatever years you have left mourning me. Live, Nathan. Really live. Find joy and purpose and maybe even love again if it comes. Do not let grief make you forget how to be happy. I could never love anyone the way I love you. I know. But that does not mean you have to be alone forever. I want you to be happy, even after I am gone. Especially after I am gone." Nathan could not promise that, could not imagine a future without Vivian in it, but he nodded because she needed him to. Vivian grew weaker as winter approached. By December, she rarely left their bedroom, though she insisted on sitting in the chair by the window so she could see the land she loved. Nathan moved his things into the bedroom, sleeping beside her, waking at the slightest change in her breathing. On Christmas Eve 1908, their friends gathered one last time. Martha and Frank Morrison, Carlos and Rosa with Maria, Thomas and his wife Sarah, and a dozen others crowded into the bedroom, filling it with love and laughter and gentle conversation. Vivian held court from her chair, smiling and talking, rallying what energy she had left to be present for this gathering. After everyone left, Nathan helped Vivian back to bed. She was exhausted but content. "Thank you," she whispered. "That was perfect." "You are perfect," Nathan said, holding her hand. "I am far from perfect, but I am perfectly loved, and that is better." On New Year's Day 1909, as the first dawn of the new year broke over the New Mexico mountains, Vivian died peacefully in Nathan's arms. She had held on through Christmas, through one last New Year's Eve, and then she let go. Nathan held her for a long time after she was gone, memorizing the feel of her in his arms one last time, telling her over and over that he loved her, that she had been everything to him, that he would carry her in his heart forever. The funeral was held 3 days later, and it seemed like half the county came to pay respects. Vivian had touched many lives in her 23 years in Hillsborough, and the church was packed with people wanting to say goodbye. Nathan stood at the graveside on the ranch, the spot Vivian had picked out years ago because it had a view of the mountains, and delivered a eulogy that left no dry eyes. Vivian came west running from an empty life, and she found fullness here. She took a chance on a starving kid with a failing ranch, and together we built something beautiful. She taught me what love really means: partnership, respect, passion, and friendship all bound together. She was 24 years older than me, and people said it would not work, that it was strange or wrong. But those people did not see what we had. They did not see how she lit up my world, how I gave her reasons to smile again. Age did not matter. All that mattered was that we loved each other completely, honestly, and forever. And even though she is gone, that love does not end. It lives on in this land, in the home we built, in the lives we touched. Vivian Carter Sawyer was my wife, my partner, my best friend, and the love of my life. And I am grateful beyond measure that she chose me. They buried her on that hillside as the sun set, painting the sky in the colors she had loved. Nathan stood long after everyone else had left, his hand on the simple wooden cross Carlos had carved, and said his own private goodbye. The months that followed were the hardest of Nathan's life. The house felt empty without Vivian's presence, without her laughter, her gentle teasing, her wisdom. He went through the motions of running the ranch, but his heart was not in it. Rosa and Maria came every day, bringing food and company. Carlos helped with the ranch work without being asked. Martha Morrison stopped bi-weekly, sitting with Nathan and letting him talk about Vivian, sharing memories, keeping her alive through stories. "She loved you so much," Martha said one afternoon. "She told me once that you had given her the happiest years of her life, that she went from surviving to thriving because of you." "She did the same for me," Nathan said, his voice rough with grief. "I do not know how to be happy without her. You will learn. It will take time, but you will learn. And she would want that for you." Nathan found comfort in the book Vivian had written about their life together. He read it over and over, hearing her voice in the words, remembering every moment she had captured. He also read through her notebooks, the stories of pioneer women, and decided to try to get them published as she had never done. It took months of writing letters and sending manuscripts. But finally, in the fall of 1909, a publisher in New York agreed to print a collection of the stories. They called it Voices of the West, Women's Stories from the New Mexico Territory, and credited Vivian Carter Sawyer as the author and editor. When Nathan received the first copies in the mail, he sat on the porch and cried, holding the book to his chest. Vivian's work would live on, would be read by people who never knew her, but would understand something of what life had been like for women on the frontier. "You did it," he whispered to her memory. "Your stories will be remembered." As the one-year anniversary of Vivian's death approached, Nathan found himself healing in small ways. The grief was still there, still sharp on bad days, but he was learning to live with it rather than letting it consume him. He threw himself into the ranch work, finding solace in the physical labor and the land Vivian had helped him save. Maria, now a young woman of 18, often came to visit, bringing her brightness and energy into the quiet house. She reminded Nathan of Vivian in some ways, her sharpness and humor, her determination to learn and grow. "Tell me another story about Vivian," she would say, and Nathan would share memories, keeping Vivian alive through the telling. On the anniversary of Vivian's death, Nathan rode out to her grave with flowers from the garden she had planted and tended. He sat beside the cross and talked to her, telling her about the published book, about the ranch, about how much he missed her. "I am trying to do what you asked," he said. "Trying to live, not just survive. But it is hard without you. Everything is harder without you," he touched the cross. "I will love you forever, Vivian. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I will carry you in my heart until the day I die." The wind picked up, rustling through the grass, and Nathan chose to believe it was Vivian's way of answering him. Nathan lived for many more years, working the ranch and watching the world change around him. He never remarried, though several people suggested he should. He told them he had had his great love, and that was enough for one lifetime. He watched Maria grow up and marry a good man, watched Carlos and Rosa's ranch prosper, watched new families move into the territory and old friends pass on. He became known as a wise elder, someone younger ranchers came to for advice. In 1925, at the age of 63, Nathan published his own memoir, a love letter to Vivian and the life they had built together. It was titled simply A Life Together, and it told their story from his perspective, honest and heartfelt. The book found a modest audience, people drawn to the unusual love story between the young rancher and the woman twice his age. Nathan received letters from readers all over the country, many of them saying the book had given them hope, had shown them that love could be found in unexpected places. Nathan lived to see the Great Depression, watched the land go through another drought, saw automobiles completely replace horses on the roads. He adapted to each change while holding fast to the values Vivian had reinforced: hard work, honesty, compassion, and love. In 1940, at the age of 78, Nathan gathered his closest friends and family and told them he was ready. "I have had a good long life," he said to Carlos, who was now 70 and still his closest friend. "Longer than I probably deserved, but I am tired and I miss her. I am ready to go." Maria, now 50, held his hand. "You taught me so much. You and Vivian both. You showed me what real love looks like." "Then pass it on," Nathan said. "Tell your children and grandchildren our story. Make sure they know that love is what matters, not age or convention or what other people think. Love is what makes life worth living." Nathan died peacefully in his sleep on a warm spring night, in the bedroom he had shared with Vivian, in the house they had built together. He was buried beside her on that hillside with a view of the mountains, and his gravestone read simply, "Nathan Sawyer, 1862–1940. Beloved husband, he lived and loved well." The ranch passed to Maria and her family, who kept it going for another generation, always remembering the couple who had built it from nothing, who had shown them all what was possible when two people loved each other truly and completely. And on quiet evenings, when the wind blew across the land and the sunset painted the sky in brilliant colors, people would say you could almost feel their presence still, Nathan and Vivian, together forever in the place they had made their own, their love story echoing through the years, proving that sometimes the most unexpected unions create the most beautiful legacies. Their story became part of the local legend, told and retold with variations, but always holding to the core truth. A poor young rancher married a stranger twice his age out of desperation, and on their wedding night and all the nights after, everything changed because they chose to love each other. They built a life together that honored them both, created a legacy that outlasted their years, and showed everyone who knew them that love recognizes no boundaries when it is real and true and given freely. The ranch still stands today, run by Maria's great-grandchildren, and in the main room hangs a portrait of Nathan and Vivian, commissioned from a photograph taken on their 10th anniversary. They are standing close together, Nathan's arm around Vivian's waist, both of them smiling at the camera with such obvious love and happiness that it radiates from the old photograph even now. Visitors to the ranch often ask about them, drawn by the obvious devotion captured in that image, and the current owners are always happy to tell the story. Of desperation that became hope, of convenience that became love, of two lonely people who found each other and built something beautiful that lasted beyond their lifetimes. It is a story about courage, about taking chances, about being willing to look past what society says you should want and reaching for what your heart tells you is right. It is a story about partnership and respect, and the kind of love that grows deeper with every passing year. Most of all, it is a story about two people who refused to let circumstances define them, who chose instead to create their own happiness against all odds. And that story, like the best love stories, never really ends. It lives on in the land, in the family that continues to work it, in the books Vivian and Nathan wrote, and in the hearts of everyone who hears it and thinks maybe, just maybe, they too can be brave enough to reach for real love, no matter what form it takes.